We're going to be doing a mid-year Raleigh housing market update. Some interesting things are starting to happen in the market, and we're going to get into the details. Stick around.
All right, so we're gonna break this video down into 3 different sections. The first section, we're gonna go over what is happening with interest rates, because obviously that is gonna drive the housing market. We're gonna talk second about what is happening nationally in the housing market. And then third, we're gonna talk about what we're seeing in the local market. So kicking it right off with interest rates. So obviously interest rates are quite a bit higher than what they started the year with. So we're kind of right in the low 7 territory, upper 6s. Fannie Mae, what is interesting though, Fannie Mae just released some new projections, and their projections are significantly different than what their projections were earlier this year and last year. So, and not in a good way. So Fannie Mae said by Q4 this year, so later 2024, they're projecting interest rates to be 7.3%. What's interesting is their previous projections were saying 6.4%. So we're talking about a point difference of interest rates as far as what their projections are. Now, looking into next year, 2025, Fannie Mae is projecting by the end of 2025, 6.6%. So still mid to high 6s by the end of 2025. Their original projections were 6%. So it's a substantial difference, essentially half a point difference for the latter half of 2025. So what that's telling us is what we're seeing in the interest rate market is probably going to be similar to what we're seeing today for what we're expecting through the end of this year into next year, which is much higher than we originally anticipated. And obviously that's going to have an impact on the housing market. I will say you got to take these with a grain of salt, because these projections are continually wrong.
Yes.
And
as we're talking about now, because last fall everybody was like, oh, it's going to be like upper 5s to low 6s in 2024.
You kept hearing people say,
like year of the 5,
yeah, the year
or
of the
it's going to be in the 6s, and it's really not changed really at all much this year. It's kind of stayed right around 7, which is kind of where we ended 2023, right around 7. At some points in the end of 2023 we were at the 8 mark, but so thankful for that. But it's definitely just kind of feels like it's staying where it's at, and I think that a lot of these predictions and stuff, they're kind of losing hope that that the Fed is really going to cut much.
Yeah. So obviously that's having a significant impact on the housing market. So we'll get into what that looks like on the national side.
With all of that being said, we know that mortgage application rates and things like that have dropped considerably. So there's definitely a wane in the buyer demand on a national level. It's not necessarily exactly what we're seeing here in Raleigh, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but just in general from the picture nationally, there's about 38% more homes of inventory sitting on the market than there were at this time exactly last year, and about 35% of homes in the past week have had a price drop nationally. So that kind of tells you that buyer demand is definitely starting to drop off a little bit. A lot more stuff coming on and sitting on the market for longer. So I think we're seeing this shift nationally. I know in some states like Texas and Florida, they've been seeing this for months now. It's definitely shifting more into the I don't want to call it technically a buyer's market, but it's definitely more buyer friendly, and I think we might start seeing some of that here in Raleigh.
Yeah, so obviously when inventory builds, that essentially means you have homes coming on the market, buyers not buying those homes, and you have homes sitting on the market a little longer. And I know Cindy mentioned a stat, 35% of the homes on the market last week nationally had a price drop. To put that in perspective, last year's numbers were about 30%. So we're seeing more homes this year having a price drop than we did the same time last year, which is telling us, again, nationally we're starting to see buyer demand starting to wane a little bit, which is a really big deal. And I think that those are trends that we might begin to also see in our market. If you have not subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button in the corner. We do videos like this on a weekly basis, and we'd love for you to be a part of the channel. All right, so now getting into the local data, which is probably more of what you're interested in. So I'll start with the trend that we had been seeing in the market and then kind of dig into what we're starting to see. So what we have been seeing this entire year so far, really starting in January up until now, is new listings hitting the market. So new homes hitting the market has been much, much stronger this year than it was last year. I mean, we're typically seeing on any given month a double-digit % increase compared to last year. So and May was that way as well. We saw 20% more new listings hitting the market in May of this year than we did in May of last year, which is significant. But what we had been seeing is inventory had been dropping even though more homes were hitting the market because buyer demand had been really strong.
Right. So they were just coming on the market and then immediately being taken up.
Exactly, getting gobbled up really quickly. We're starting to see that trend reverse. So we're seeing new listings hitting the market in large numbers, but we're starting to see inventory grow, which means in our market, buyer demand is also starting to decrease. So to put that in perspective, there's really two ways you can measure inventory in the market. One is days, or not days on market, but a month's worth of inventory. So right now, there's 2.3 months worth of inventory, which means if no more homes hit the market, it would take 2.3 months to move through that inventory on the current market. That's almost a 10% increase from where we were last year in May. Another way you can measure is how many active homes are currently on the market today. That's also roughly a 10% increase from what we saw last year. I think it's a 9% increase to be exact.
And we're filming this the first week of June.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what we're beginning to see in our market is what some states in the country have been seeing for several months now, and that is a little bit lower buyer demand, inventory starting to grow, which is going to create a more buyer-friendly market. And I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think this is going to change. I think we're going to see this trend potentially grow as we go further into the year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have some seasonality to that. Obviously, spring and the beginning of the year historically are typically kind of the times of year people are looking to move and secure a home so they can be in for the summer, get their kids started in school. You know, everything always gets a little bit slower in the fall, in parts of the summer, everybody's on vacation. So, you know, you have that kind of coming into play as well, but it's definitely going to be interesting. And by some of these stats that we mean, we're still seeing a lot of homes go in multiple offer competitive situations, and it's very much regionally bound and home specific bound, you know, like if you have a gorgeous updated home that's turnkey and move-in ready, you're not going to get a deal on it. It is not going to sit on the market for 2 months like that.
I think that's probably going to be true in no matter what market we're in. If you have a beautiful home in a highly desirable area, it's probably going to go quickly and maybe for multiple offers, regardless of what the market looks like. So so that means people coming and looking to move to Cary, these numbers are not going to be accurate for the majority of Cary houses are still going to be selling probably in multiple offer situations, maybe not at the same rate that they were in February or in March when it was really crazy, but homes there are still selling commonly above the listed price or selling very quickly. Now you have other sides of that where you have more niche homes or homes that might need updating that are staying on the market for a little longer. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get like a huge deal on it, but there's definitely a lot more negotiation that can go on, especially maybe with some concessions to help you with like an interest rate buy down to try to make that more affordable. Yeah, exactly. So what does this mean for you, the consumer? So if you're a seller, obviously we're now moving into a market where there could be a little more patience that is required on the selling side of it. You may not get the same offer that you would have gotten in March. And that's okay because, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't, like, everybody wants to time the market perfectly. That doesn't really always exist. I don't think it ever exists. And so, you know, but there is just realistic expectations of what that looks like. On the buy side, my advice to buyers recently has been essentially, hey, the market's kind of going to be house dependent. Like in March, it might be, hey, every house is going to be competitive. But now it's like, hey, this house may be competitive, but this house over here may not be. And so it's going to be a little more house dependent on what you're looking at. But I think in general, I think last year we saw this trend starting like July, August time frame. So we're starting a little earlier this year, but I don't think this is going to be something, my opinion, I don't think this is going to be something that we're going to see change. I think we're going to see inventory build as the year goes and the market become a little softer and a little more favorable to buyers, which ultimately, unaffordability is at its peak. interest rates are high, so there's got to be some give and take at some point.
Right. So it'll be a little nicer for buyers because they're already getting hit so hard on the affordability with prices. Prices are not going down. That is one stat locally. You know, even with all of these things, the prices are still going up. We're not seeing a drop in prices, but we are seeing, you know, homes just taking longer to move, or maybe being a little bit less competitive. But, you know, with those higher prices and with the higher interest rates, it's definitely hard to be a buyer anywhere in the country these days. But, you know, it's nice to at least not have to also throw yourself into a multiple offer situation where you have to bid $50,000 more and have a lot more cash on hand. So I think it'll be interesting to see how things move this summer. Yeah, and like Zach said, I think unless there is a big interest rate drop on a national level, it probably will stay kind of consistent.
Yeah. And one last thing, these stats that we're throwing out locally are the entire Triangle multiple listing service. So we're talking pretty much every region within the greater Triangle region. The market is still within that region going to be hyper local. So a Clayton is going to look different than a Durham, and a Chapel Hill is going to look different than a Wake Forest. And so there's still much more local data that you can look at. And if you're interested in that, we're actually going to go into this on a live, which by the time this video is posted, the live will have already been posted as well.
But you can watch the replay.
But you can watch the replay on that. So, but anyway, I'm Zach. It's my beautiful wife, Cindy. We're a couple of real estate agents in the area. If you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can contact us at the contact info below. And you can also, sorry, that garbage truck was really loud. And you can also reach out to us on Instagram.
Yep, we'd love to have you follow along on Instagram. You can find us at the Honeycutt Realtors, or you can find our other page kind of going over news and developments in the area, and that's the RDU Buzz. Or you can find our website, honeycuttteam.com, and we look forward to connecting with you.
Yep, we'll see y'all next time.